Good Friday morning to you. Good Friday morning to you. You're listening to and or watching the video, the Wiley Report. And in case you're wondering who am I, I'm Wiley, Chris Wiley. That is, the Wiley Report is basically gives me a platform and ability to talk about some of my research interests or just things that I'm interested in, which are exploring the relationship of beliefs, values, ideas, as well as how they are enacted socially and legislatively. Ideas in itself are defined as an aim or a purpose, and beliefs are the acceptance of something that's true or something that exists, and values are something that is held deep within deep regard, if you will. And I'm always fascinated with how and or what people mean when they say values, when we say that in relationship to democracy, or when we talk about these ideas, values, beliefs, and the policies that are designed and created and governing everyday individuals, the intersections and everything in between. So I'm always fascinated. How does that work out, and what does it mean for our daily life? And so it's been a minute since I've done the Wiley Report because life has been lifing. I've been busy. But today I figured, you know what? I have something to talk about because yesterday many of us read or have been seeing the experience in these social streets, if you will, that Brittney Griner, the American basketball player, was sentenced to 9 years after being accused by Russian prosecutors of trying to smuggle less than 1 gram of cannabis oil in her luggage. I don't know if you've been watching or following along the conversation socially. Sometimes when I was listening to it yesterday, some of the conversations have ranged from the United States should do more or isn't doing anything. Or they bring up, Vice President Kamala Harris is a Black woman, and what is she doing about another Black woman that's experiencing this? Real talk, I don't know what Vice President Harris is doing or isn't doing, or what the United States is doing or isn't. I don't. But I think what it does highlight is the fact that the United States has relationships with other countries, and in this case, the relationship with Russia is strained. Some people have the commentary that in the conversation socially that Brittney Griner is used as a political pawn in Russia's war against the Ukraine. I remain uncertain. I'm not saying that I don't think that she's being used. I'm just saying I in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if it's that. I think the deeper issue that it highlights is it does highlight the issue of what happens to United States citizens when they go to other countries and they experience some trouble. In the case of Brittney Griner, I think it's Joy Taylor. You can follow her on Instagram. Was talking about this on a show that uh, Brittney Griner, this would be her 8th year playing for Russia. She often goes to Russia to play basketball. That's not necessarily a new topic because many NBA, or not NBA, but many WNBA, NBA stars or under professionals, if you will, go to other countries to play for a wide array of reasons. Uh, Brittney Griner admitted wholeheartedly that it was an accident. It wasn't her intent to cause harm, to violate laws. But as you know, in the United States and in other countries, just because that's not your intent, just because you didn't mean to, does not mean that laws will not be applied to you. Yet the deeper question is often justice, fairness, you know, how does that work out when you're a United States citizen in other countries? And the reality that sometimes socially people have seen or experienced others receive different treatment. Do I think that's necessarily the case here? I don't think so. I think I think the only justifiable response for a lot of people in watching this case is that we want to see a video, we want to hear the word that Brittney Griner is coming back to the United States to be with her family. We want that to work out. That's what I really believe that a lot of people want that, or I'm hopeful that more people will want that. Yet I can say that while I hope that, reading people's comments in the social streets, when they all on the internet, some people have zero compassion, zero ethics of care. at all. And a lot of people have just stupid comments that are not worth even repeating, which I often find the irony in that because, I think everybody, me, you, us, we have, often made mistakes or we've often done things where we didn't intend for harm to happen, yet harm happened. Yet in our cases, oftentimes the consequence of our harm may or may not be 9 years in a Russian jail or Russian prison. You know what I'm saying? Or in this government where another government is sentencing you to 9 years. For many of us, that's not what happened to us when we made our mistake or our error of judgment, or we didn't think about something. We didn't necessarily have that level of consequence. And sometimes I think because me, you, us, some people didn't have that consequence or it didn't happen to anybody that people be just reckless at the mouth, which is problematic. But I'm gonna be good today and not do a full whiteboard why them and their mama is wrong. But all jokes aside, I think what's important, statements aside, I think what's important though is what I thought about the deeper questions in this issue is thinking about, okay, the United States and their relationships with other countries because we don't often have these conversations. And so a great uh, website because I always want people to be informed. I try to share my screen. Am I on it? Yes, here we are. This is important. It's the United States Department of State. That would be important. And I think it's also important to think about what their mission is. Their mission is to protect and promote U.S. security, prosperity, and democratic values and shape an international environment in which all Americans can thrive. You also notice this section here, which is countries and areas. This shows different countries and areas. So we're going to go, if you will, to Russia. That's what we're doing today. Just gonna get us some, education. There you go. So most of the time, I would say that most people, if any, they really only stop with this section right here that talks about international travel information because most people, whether it's long before COVID ever existed or people are traveling and then let's say you're trying to have the experience of going to another country, you go to this particular site or go to that country site and try to figure out what you need to know before you go. Embassy, consulate, locations, vaccinations, as you notice saying, hey, don't travel there. But you'll notice here, there are a lot of different countries. But I think what's most important in this conversation, because we're talking about Brittney Griner and just deep sadness. Shout out to her family and every single friend of support because I have no idea what it must feel like or must be like to be in this experience. And I do think that it is unfair, that it isn't just, and that is absolutely wrong. It's some braganaga is what I really believe. But while that's true, I also realize that I'm just a person that has zero power in changing it. Yet I wish that it was not the situation that was being faced. But when we look at, the fact sheet here, I think it's important to think about, like I said, the relationship that the United States has with this particular country. And you can see, you can click on any of these countries that are listed on this website. You can also find out, where you can find out more about the Secretary of State. You can find out a wealth of information. I think that's really important because I think we live in times where me, you, us need to be informed deeper than what can we do in another country and should we go to another country, but what happens if you, me, us somehow ends up in a situation where we're in trouble. So when we think about, the United States relationship with Russia, here's some quick history. Russia recognized the United States October 28th of 1803, and the diplomatic relationship between Russia and the United States was established in 1809. Now, the diplomatic relationship was interrupted in 1917 because of the Bolshevik Revolution. Now, it wasn't necessarily formally severed. There was no information that said that it was, but the United States, when they were having the Bolshevik Revolution, the United States did refuse to recognize or have any formal relationships with the Bolshevik and or uh, Soviet government until 1933. And so then in November 16th of 1933, diplomatic relations were resumed. And then on December 25th, 1991, the United States recognized the Russian Federation as a successor to the Soviet Union and established diplomatic relations on December 31st, 1991. Now, the bigger question is, what does that mean when we say diplomatic relations? That means that the United States adopts or adopted a bipartisan strategy to facilitate cooperation on global issues and promote foreign investment and trade. That the United States supported Russia's integration into European and global institutions and deepened bilateral partnership and security cooperation to reinforce the foundations of stability and predictability. What does that mean in everyday terms? That means the United States has a relationship with, or at least sought to have a relationship, so they act as partners to on global issues, on foreign investment, on trades. I often tell people and say in many contexts, everything in this world is a relationship. So when we look at the United States, what the United States does have relationships with other countries. The issue and or experience is that some of these relationships are stronger than others. Now, in 2014, Russia rejected the approach uh, of the United States supporting their integration into European and global institutions that I just read for you. So in response, um, to the Russians' violation in 2014 of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, the United States downgraded the bilateral political and military relationship and suspended the Bilateral Presidential Commission, a body jointly funded in 2009 by the United States and Russia to promote cooperation between the two countries. What does that mean in layman's terms? That means that sometimes when countries violate whatever the partnership or the existing relationship agreements are, sometimes you'll find or see that the United States takes things away. Sometimes there are fines, there's trade agreements that no longer exist. Things of that nature happen because it's like, well, what can you really do? We have a relationship, but it, most people don't necessarily live over in the United States. So, I mean, not live over in the United States. Most people don't necessarily, when we think about like, what can they legally do? That's why you'll see fines, or that's why you'll see, like I said, trade agreements, lessening or rules, policies, and procedures, the benefits that this particular country might get, the access to resources that this country might get or have when they violate an agreement or violate the terms of the partnership and the relationship. That means things change out here in these streets. But the deeper question or deeper statement is something that I want you to think about is looking at this situation, Brittney Griner, and people are saying, hey, socially, or saying she's political theater. One of the key things I think is always language is important when we think about relationships with the United States and other countries. And when we think about that, I found it interesting that on the website that I was showing you, the United States Department of State, it literally says in a sentence, the United States would like to stabilize our relationship with Russia and cooperate where possible and when it's in the core U.S. national security interest to do so. Why is that important? I tell you that's important because words and language policies always matter, specifically when you think about the meaning. If someone says, because earlier on their website, they said the United States has long sought a full and constructive relationship with Russia, which basically means they don't have one. Or at least it's an implication, because I feel like I need to holler allegedly. There's an implication that they do not have one, that they would like the terms of their relationship to be better, that prior to even the issue or the experience of the Ukraine, if you will, they hoped that the relationship would be better. And what does all that mean in the context of Brittney Griner? I think what it means and feel what it means, this is just Chris's opinions, is if the United States has a positive, strong allyship relationship. That means when a United States citizen gets in trouble, experiences some level of issues, the partnership, the allyship, the positive relationship means there is a greater negotiation ground than when the relationship is strained. That's what that means. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because this country might be, let's say, for example, if Russia was an ally, that the situation could be any different. It just means that the United States' ability to bargain, the United States' ability to negotiate might be stronger based on the fact that they had, before whatever the experience is going on, a positive, stronger bond. And I say that because the United States has special relationships or has allyship, if you will, with, for example, the United Kingdom, Israel, but I'm not gonna get in that last one. I'm not gonna do that. So so just thinking about that, and I think all of these things are important. And why they're important? Because when a United States citizen, fortunately in this case, Brittney Griner, is in this experience, how can the United States bargain? How can the United States negotiate her release or get her out of this situation when they already have a strained relationship with that country? And I think socially, we don't necessarily talk about that because socially we're saying they should be doing something. And I'm not saying you're wrong or people are wrong in the sense that the United States should be doing something. I'm not saying it's wrong that there's situations with other countries. There are also situations with people with other hues that have different experiences. But it's also true that disparities when it comes to laws, when it comes to practices, when it comes to rules, no matter the country, even within our own great United States, there are often disparate experiences. Just wanted to shed light on that because I think oftentimes socially, that's what we're not talking about and we should be talking about. And why is it that these things continue to happen? I do not know, and I don't have an answer for that. And do I think that it's unfortunate? Yes. Do I think that the sentencing is absolutely harsh? Absolutely. Yet I also know that when it comes to other countries and their practices and their rules and their laws, it's not always the same. It's not always, and I don't want to say same because same feels wrong. It's not always going to be a fair sentence. And I think that's unfortunate. Yet I also think it's unhelpful for people to be out here in the social streets talking, she shouldn't have been going over this. She shouldn't. Shut up. That's, I can't. I'm gonna get back to work. I'm gonna stop because I'm gonna get ready to be shady in like 5 minutes. So yeah, but I just think it's important to think about these concepts as far as like, when a individual goes to another country, what rules, policies, practices, procedures are in place because we're often not thinking about that. In my own life, I was thinking about the experience of work travel. And work travel for me was, because of research, I've gotten to go to the United Kingdom, London. I've gotten to go to Beijing, China, and I've gotten to go to Italy. Yet, those were work trips. I wasn't necessarily there for an extensive period of time. It was literally, you were there for how long the length of the conference was. And thankfully, there were no issues. But it would be important to know, should there be any issues of any experience, what you should do. The offices, embassies, all of that information is pertinent. I think in life, it's often not pertinent until it's you and until it's your experience. And a lot of us don't necessarily know that. And I don't think it's because of something negative. It's just like you just don't know. Like I didn't know until I was reading that Russia actually had an embassy in DC. But then again, when I went to China and I had to get the visa, I didn't know that they had an office and a consulate in Chicago. I mean, an office that was just dedicated to everything that related to China. I didn't know that. But why would I know that? Because prior to, you know, um, the experience of getting ready to go to this conference to present, I wouldn't know. So my ultimate point is be informed. Be informed. Do I think that being informed would help in this situation? Not necessarily, because Russia and the United States do not necessarily have a good relationship. When you read their history, It often comes across, allegedly, that Russia sees itself as a competitor to the United States, not necessarily a partner, not necessarily an ally. So if I'm competing with you to be better than you because the United States is seen or believed to be a superpower, that's going to be a problem. We won't have time. I can give you those thoughts, but I'm not giving them today. Y'all have a good day. Thanks for listening to the Wiley Report. Feel free to comment. Tell me what you think. Do you think that, Brittney Griner is being used as a political pawn? What are your thoughts on the matter? What do you think could be done in this situation? What should be done? What should justice look like in the situation? My thoughts are we should bring her home, but I don't know how we're going to do that. I really don't. I really don't know how we're going to do that. That's all I got. Peace.